What's up, guys? Welcome back to Will of DDT. My name's Anonymous, and we are here with my buddy Alec. Alec and I were just at the Peoria Regional last Saturday, and Alec, tell them what you did.
So I went 9-0 undefeated at the Peoria Regional, just a place, 511 players, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Just 9 rounds of straight Swiss. Since I was last undefeated, it cuts there. And then, I took it home with all the prize with Katakuri.
With Katakuri, let's see it. All right, so Alec here is going to lay out his profile for us, his deck list, and like you were saying, Alec, we were talking a little earlier, you mentioned that Katakuri lists are pretty standard, but again, I'm not really a yellow player, so I don't know everything about it, but I do feel like this is actually maybe the set where the most variety has been introduced. I know some people like the zero cost event, some people don't. There's some jank running around with like no 10 moms. There's just some interesting choices versus like how many reject, how many Amaru. So start out with the standard stuff, I guess, but then let's get to your spicy stuff at the end.
No, absolutely. So first thing I'll basically just kind of show off is the general 2K counters that you'll see most decks running. So it's going to be the four Amandes and then the 4 Satoris. So Amande is just really good generic 2K to search out.
For sure.
Also has a relevant ability, especially against decks that are putting up any type of 2-drop blockers. You have a way to rest them on top of your other ways like Amaru.
Okay.
Satori just being a body out of life, because Katakuri right now wants to be as aggressive as possible against basically every single matchup.
Sure.
It's not the build before where you're stalling until you get 10 mom. It's sometimes you want to push even before 10 mom's an option.
Right. And that's why I was, like I mentioned, I still think it's crazy, but some people don't run the 10 mom, and that's just because they're just maximizing aggression.
Right.
And the Satori being a 5 cost can be a little obnoxious too, just makes it a little harder for the Morias and Sakas to deal with it.
Exactly. And then we have everyone's favorite 2K Beige.
Let's go.
Beige, like 4 of, no questions asked. This card just kind of makes or breaks game sometimes. As much as people like it or not, triggers are part of the game, so having a trigger that just full stops a swing just kind of sinks you in for a game, but also just being a 2K in hand, because I'll tell you, especially that day, I had Beige more in hand than ever in trigger.
Really?
I maybe triggered it once the entire day.
For sure.
So it's reliable, but also in multiple ways. And then where my build kind of branches a bit is I did throw in the 2 Strusen.
Okay.
There are builds that have done the 2 Strusen, and I took note of that, which is why mine was kind of like a hybrid of a lot of decks that have already topped.
Sure.
The reason why was after testing beforehand, I would just have so many games that counters just did not exist in my hand. I think I had a game in a local where I had 8 cards in hand, 0 counter.
Yeah.
And then that was also a game where I whiffed Pero, Pudding so many times because the deck does have a lot of misses off those now.
Sure.
Strusen helps make those numbers better, just in both ways possible.
So it really is just more about being a big mom 2K. You're not really looking to kill anything with it.
Exactly. If it kills anything, and if they're playing 1 cost blockers for any reason, then that's an add bonus, but 2K is just all this. 2K and searchable is all this guy's providing right now.
Gotcha.
And then, so we kind of just move on to what the immediate 4-ofs always are. We have the new Kikunojo. There's debate versus like how people actually feel about this card, because just like old Thunderbolt, in hand, it's kind of annoying to have, but in life, though, it, again, is a make or break trigger.
Sure.
I think the benefits outweigh the negatives, though, with Kikunojo, especially with the fact that even playing it on curve, you're playing a 6K stat, or a 4-drop vanilla stat line.
Right.
With an ability that makes it hard for them to think about if they want to remove it or not.
Right.
The only deck that really doesn't care as much as Sokka, but I mean, Sokka doesn't care about a lot.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I'm curious. Did you run into any matchups where the pressure was just that great that a Moria player decided to KO your Kikunojo?
Honestly, I don't think a Kikunojo ever got KO'd that day.
Yeah.
But that is to say, I never really triggered.
Oh,
Kikunojo.
damn, tough.
I think I hit maybe off the top of my head a couple, like once or twice, and it was at a point where the game it didn't matter.
Okay.
At that point,
Gotcha.
there was never any pressure with it, but definitely the pressure is there to exist.
Definitely.
Then 4 of Sanji, just blocker out of life, a 5K body to start swinging. Honestly, Sanji, The blocker part is more of a second hand. Just the fact that it's another 5k body is what you want in the deck right now.
Fair
and then
enough.
having that versatility of a blocker. Because in the mirror, Sanji is crucial. The
Really?
mirror, just like any deck that plays Katakuri hates blockers.
Okay.
We have Reject, we have Amaru, sure, but playing around those cards and having a good kind of blocker board is how you stop them from swinging outright.
Gotcha.
Even in the mirror especially. And that also brings, will come up again when I kind of show another card coming up. And then just this very standard 3 Sparrow, 3 Pudding. These are pretty self-explanatory. Or sorry, not 3.
Four, okay.
4 Sparrow, 4 Pudding.
Okay, yeah.
Just the searchers for the deck, 5k body. The curve you want to see on turn 1 and turn 2 almost always, which I'll thankfully say that I'm pretty sure at least 8 out of my 9 games were putting into Sparrow curve
Wow, okay.
off both turn 1 and 2, so just got kind of lucky there.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just pretty good there. Another just immediate 4 of that needs no introduction is the Big Mom.
Yep.
Now, I went back and forth if I actually wanted to run the 4 because, like I said before, there are a lot of times with Katakuri that you don't get to the mom turn, or you don't want to get to the mom turn. You want to almost be winning before mom even drops, but
Sure.
just the pressure of it existing is good. The fact that I had to up it back to 4 though was knowing that I'd be running into basically nothing but mirrors and geckos.
Yes.
This makes or break the mirror. Geckos want to drag the game out as long as possible, so just having the 10 mom in hand puts the pressure that you want.
Right.
They're not going to let you start swinging out at all times, especially with the way the geckos are running their blocker boards now.
For sure.
So at 4, you just want to see it. You want to see it and have it ready. That's pretty much the standard there. And then now I'll kind of go into a bit more of certain choices. 3 Gadatsu instead of like the usual 4 that people run.
Okay.
I like the Gadatsu, but the reason why 3 ended up being the call was Gecko players are smarter now.
Yeah.
Even soccer players are smarter now, especially with deck building.
Sure.
I'm going to go off the assumption I'm never going to get what I want, and that's usually going first and having the curve for 1, 3, 5.
Sure.
If Gecko steals that curve, and they did 3 times, the 5 Dawn curve was always a Sabo. The Gadatsu in hand at that point just became the 6k blocker, which you would still play it. But
Right.
it makes it less crucial because the players are just smarter.
Sure. That makes sense.
But when I saw it though, it definitely did take care of a lot of if I needed to remove blocker, or in the mirror, it removes a pair of Sparrow, removes bodies. So you want to still see it, but when there were cuts that needed to be made, he was one of the first ones that I just kind of decided on.
That makes sense. And I feel like he is a lot more valuable against 5 life leaders than he is against 4 life leaders. And yeah, we're seeing a lot of 4 life leaders in the meta right now.
And again, with only 5 life, big leader being either Kata or Gecko,
Yep.
they both have a way around it, so it's not as reliable as you would want it to be.
Sure.
And then here's where there's a kind of a divide in the Kata list where it's either 4 Linlin, 0 Katakuri, or 3 and 1. The 3 and 1 was because I was just terrified of Fortress Yamato.
Yeah, ACOS kid.
Yeah, I never went up against it.
Sure.
But that is to say, this card, even without that matchup, Katakuri is good in the Moria matchup. I use it to kind of remove like blockers on board to kind of swing for game the following turn.
For sure.
You could remove a Moria because a 9k body is something you just don't want them to have sticking around.
Right.
It has its uses of putting a body back in your life. There's really no reason to not run at least one of the Katakuri, but that is to say, you prioritize 7 drop Linlin because she just puts the pressure on her, whether it's on 7 on 8.
For sure.
This card makes them have to think about how they want the game to go going forward.
Yeah, and I personally, and I mean, I play some jank decks, so I'm usually just trashing my life, but I'm curious what you found. Do most Moria players like giving you the life, or...
I saw that there were times that they actually took the life, which made me think that they were confident that I wasn't going to be able to break board to get through, so I kind of took that as a challenge at that point.
Okay.
If they gave the life, though, like that's where the Kata player has to immediately adapt to the situation. It's not that they're adapting, you're adapting to what they choose.
Sure.
Because if they give you the life, then you have to think, how do I slow down this game now to where now I'm in control?
Gotcha.
You like it either way, but you have to be smart with the game plan you do.
Sure, makes sense.
So those are the more odd choices, some people would say, in the deck.
Sure.
And then we just get to What's left would be, one more odd choice was the 2 Brûlés.
Okay.
Again, this was seen in a lot of other decks that have topped, with like different ratios though. Wins the mirror outright. It's basically a base trigger. This kind of stops full swings from happening.
For sure.
Even in decks that can remove it as a body. That's why people just think it's a removable target for Gecko, removable target for Sokka.
Right.
You don't want them to get the option to remove it right away. You want this to be their last swing in.
They've got barely any Dawn left.
Used everything.
Right.
This comes out. They don't have a choice. They either use up the rest of the Dawn to remove it.
Yep.
Or whatever they need to do. This card just saves me more than I can count.
For sure.
It has been for the last 3 sets, so I just have a personal bias towards Brûlé.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, like you said, I mean, if Moria and Sokka can remove it, but if they get to it too late, I mean, it's 1 cost above Houndblaze. It's 1 cost above even the Absalom. Like they're not going to have the resources to deal with it.
That's also why, if I knew this Brûlé was in life or a trigger, I would make sure that like if it's Sokka, they already attack with Sokka first. That way, they have to find a way to get that Brûlé off. And any resources they waste at that point is resources they're not using towards your bigger things.
For sure.
That's what you want. And then what kind of put Katakuri back on the map is obviously the spread of different events here. We have the 2 Amaru, the 3 Reject, and the 2 You're the One Who Should Disappear. These ratios are probably the biggest difference between all lists.
Yeah.
I've seen 1, 2, 1. I've seen 3, 3, 2. I've seen the whole mix. For the room of the bodies and characters that I wanted, I had to kind of keep things low. Amaru, I feel, has to be less prioritized for the same reason I mentioned before. Players are smarter.
Sure.
Gecko players are smart. They're not going to let you get free Amarus. They're going to make sure that there's at least a 5 cost blocker. Reiju matchups are all playing Queen.
Sure.
Like, this Amaru is great, don't get me wrong, but it's not great at a point where you want to see, like, 2 of it in hand sometimes.
Gotcha.
I won games with it, don't get me wrong, but that's right, I had the cut where I did. Reject at 3. This card is banned for a reason.
Yeah.
Or, soon to be banned for a reason.
Soon to be bad.
I almost had it at 2, but the fact that it won me 8 out of my 9 games flat out was the reason why I'm glad that I stuck with the 3.
Okay.
I saw it when I needed it. Again, I'll chalk it up to luck is a big factor of the game. I'll see this card when I needed it, so it just kind of pulled a lot of wins out. But
sure.
Either way, I think that you want to see this card, whether it's a removal tool, whether it's a way to finish the game. Both effects on this card just make your tempo plays so much stronger, and that's what the game is. It's all tempo.
For sure.
And then this card, just to be both flexible of, if I have a chance to put it at bottom of life, which I did before, it's great. Otherwise, it makes my dead cards live again as a pseudo 2 and 1k as a 3k counter. So just good card all around, because you're playing a lot of whiffs. And no matter how much you try to fix that, especially with the 2ks I threw in here, this card also saves the day.
Sure. So
those are basically the reason for like the choices I had.
Gotcha. And I guess just a few questions about your matchups and whatnot. I'm just curious, what was your weirdest matchup of the day? Was there anything outside of Moria, Sokka, and mirrors that you saw that was just what the hell?
Everything was standard. I thankfully gets added and run into any rogue decks, which I know did take out a few buddies that I know. Because you don't expect them, and they couldn't get away with it.
Right.
I'd say the only outlier I played was probably a Yamato deck, which I expected there to be at least one.
Yeah.
That I ran into, that deck lasted 3 turns.
It
was either he killed me or I killed him.
Sure.
So it, thankfully, I was able to counter out the early swings, and he had to roll the dice. If I had it, again, the 2k counters in my deck were what pulled through.
For sure.
If I didn't have those, I would have got Onami'd out of life, and wouldn't have happened.
Gotcha.
Other than that, all the matches were standard. All the players were fantastic. I don't think there was a single game that felt too easy.
Yeah.
Everything was as stressful as I was expecting. The Gecko players knew what they were doing. The lists were what I was expecting. Gecko lists get interesting because you have to meet at a point, figure out, are they running Hinas? Are they running heavier?
They run Hinas? The 3. Yeah.
Or not Tina, sorry. Are they running Rebecca's? Or are they running a non-Rebecca list?
Sure.
And they prioritize other stuff. Again, this is mostly them playing around Amaru, so...
For sure.
All the games felt really good. I'd say the closest one I had was definitely a mirror match around I believe round 6,
Okay.
6 or 7. That win was solely due to what it was last in both of our lives.
Oh, really?
It came down to literally just what cards existed in the last of our life, and I just had the better luck on that turn. So
Nice.
Katakuri has a lot of talk about it being like, does it deserve to be looked at as a top deck with amount of wins? I personally say yes, in the sense that no matter how you can think of a deck that relies on things like triggers or
Sure.
kind of more lucky draws, there has to be a reason that happens so many times in a row.
Sure.
And you kind of take the basis of there are other people that have won other tournaments with a lot more rounds. The deck can carry players, absolutely. Same could be said for other arguments for other decks, but I think Kata is one of those decks that there are choices that if you don't make the right ones early, you're setting yourself up for the loss later in the game.
Sure. Okay.
So, and I definitely feel like I demonstrated that with some of the games, especially with choices of like, where do I put life? Where do I not put life? What triggers did I let go through? What triggers did I hold off on? Because sometimes you have to think of, is the card better in hand?
Yeah.
Or is it better as a body?
Yeah, I've seen people lose games to using the base trigger, ironically, when it would have been better to just hold the 2K.
Exactly.
So very, very interesting commentary there. And then just like last question, just for funsies,
Sure.
What are you planning on playing next set? Be that EBO1, OP7, you know.
So, I'm mostly looking for OP7. I want to play Anel again.
Okay.
Back to my yellow roots, but I have been liking a really fun Wano Yamato list.
Okay.
That's been spiking up, so we'll see. For the next regional, at least, that'll be EV legal. I will either be switching over to Red Purple Law, or most likely trying to make Anel work.
Okay.
If it doesn't work, then probably Law.
Okay.
Law gets in the fun zone for me, so.
Sure. All right. Well, Alec, again, congrats so much on your win. It was really cool seeing you there, and enjoy your spoils of war. These are some beautiful cards, and hope to see you around in future videos, man. Take it easy, bro.
For sure. Thank you.